Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelin Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. 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 That was awesome. You guys are awesome.
No.
You're awesome. You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. And this week is a very special episode. I knew when Wonder Woman was coming out, based on the trailers, that there was something different about this DC movie. And it reminded me of Captain America in the sense that the period setting, I don't know, the trailers for Captain America, the first Avenger, hit me in a way, and the trailer for this one, Wonder Woman, hit me in a big bad way. But one thing DC has taught me was to be very, very careful of what we see in the trailers. But then the buzz started happening, and people actually liked this movie, unlike the other ones. So I knew as soon as I heard that I had to go see this movie. And not only did I have to go see Wonder Woman, but I had to talk about it with two people in particular. From the episode either 58 or 59, I sat down and spoke to Kacey Spivey. She's an actress, a producer, and host for Screen Rant. She was in Game of Thrones, the musical, out in LA. And our conversation took us to this wonderful little place where we were speaking about gender equality in Hollywood, or the lack thereof, and we were talking about women in Hollywood, and it was just a really interesting conversation. Go find that episode that we did with Kacey Spivey. I'll link to it in the show notes. Fun conversation about Kacey herself, and it took a turn to a really cool conversation about gender and women in Hollywood, and not just Hollywood. I think we kind of covered it, everywhere, but, for the purpose of that conversation, it was Hollywood. So I knew I wanted to speak to Kacey, and I also wanted to speak to our good friend, super friend, Hall of Famer for Super Friends, Garrett Smith. Garrett, you'll remember from our first 2 episodes ever of Everything is Awesome. You'll remember him as being the comedian we had at the first ever Philadelphia Podcast Festival we were part of for 2016. He was also recently a guest host for us at our Amalgam Comics and Coffeehouse show. And he's just a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show. And I knew he has the same feelings about women in movies that Kacey has and that I have. And he's vocal about it, unlike myself. He's super vocal about it. He's a film guy. So I knew that I wanted to talk to both of them about Wonder Woman because I thought it was going to be something special. So what you're going to listen to is a conversation I had with both Garrett and Kacey separately. First coming up is going to be, I figured, hey, we're going to talk about a movie that's very empowering for women. Let's kick it off with 2 dudes talking about it. So I just thought the irony there was worth it. So right here is my conversation with Garrett Smith about Wonder Woman and how special it was to both him and I, right here on awesomepodcast.com. So I did finally see Wonder Woman last night at...
Oh, yeah, cool.
I saw it at 10:10 at my local movie theater, which I didn't get there until 10:30 at night. Now, I don't know. I know we kind of talked the other at the show the other day about how because you're an adult, it's hard to do things. Does that include going to the movies late at night?
Yes, it does.
Oh
I have had to stop going to see midnight movies. I used to love going to see, and Philly has really cool midnight movie screenings.
Yeah,
somewhat frequently.
Okay.
And I just had to stop going because it didn't matter how good the movie was or cool it was to see it. I fell asleep a half hour into Pulp Fiction one time.
Oh man!
And just slept through the whole thing.
Wow.
I can't do it. It's a dark room
Yeah.
in a comfy chair, and if it's too late, I just fucking pass out.
Yeah, I'm I can stay up during the movie. It's just that the next day is really rough. Like, my eyes have been so droopy all day. Now,
oh man, yeah.
to be fair, I also got home a little wired and binge watched 13 Reasons on Netflix.
What? Like the whole thing?
I was halfway through it already, so I just binged the next 6 hours. And
so you just didn't sleep.
I slept for an hour.
But you're blaming Wonder Woman for that.
No. I'm blaming the midnight showing, not Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was so now it's a little unfair because I got your kind of spoiler-free review yesterday.
Yeah, Red. I hope I didn't overhype it for you.
No, well, so I'm gonna. The first thing I'm gonna say is that it is not only the best DC movie for sure.
Yeah.
It was just a solid movie overall. Now,
yeah.
I will say, all that kind words being said, that it was, and not by you, by any stretch of the imagination, it just has had a lot of hype out there over this weekend. I think it did, for me, suffer from being, being built up in my own mind to be something more than it was. So I wasn't disappointed, but I walked out saying, well, that wasn't what I thought it was going to need to be, but it was still just so good. And I think the going average score is 93% right now, and I would say 89% is where I actually put it. It seems like a solid B plus.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think part of my just enthusiasm about it was I went in with no expectation. You unfortunately had a little bit of expectation because the DC movie. I have not liked the DC movie.
No,
I just have generally not really liked them.
Yeah, since Nolan, they've kind of been terrible. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I mean, there are things I like about BVS. There are some great sequences in Man of Steel. I don't hate those movies or anything, but I have not liked those movies for sure. So I kind of went in, but I was hopeful about Wonder Woman. Yeah. I like Patty Jenkins, and I really like Gal Gadot because I'm a big Fast and Furious head. And I was pretty pumped already, but I also just I didn't really know what to expect at all. I'm also not super familiar with Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
I've read I've read a few issues of Wonder Woman in my life, and most of them were post New 52 issues of Wonder Woman. Yeah. So, I don't I guess I just had really kind of no expectation for it, and just fell mostly the more I think about it, was I really think it's that romance at the heart of it that works so fucking well and is so entertaining that I was so on board with it pretty much the whole time. Last half hour, not so much, but
yeah. I gotta say, I was thinking about what you said at the live show. After I watched the movie, and I don't think I could say anything different really about how I felt about it, because you were spot on about exactly how I felt about that movie. Like you said, the last half hour, when it almost looks like the studio finally said, "Hey guys, you have to do this kind of fight scene."
We have a mandate here at DCEU, and it's every final battle has to look like an animatic from a Mortal Kombat cutscene.
Yeah. It was. And even that, I didn't hate. It was.
No, it was not terrible for sure. It is more just I'm so tired of fucking seeing that ending. It's on every. Yeah. It's on every comic book movie. It's not even the worst version of it for sure. I didn't actively hate it or anything, but it was just kind of a big fat yawn at the end of a really exciting, cool movie that I was pretty jazzed on.
It was, and for me, and I kind of hate making this comparison because I want it to stand on its own, and it does. It does 100% stand on its own, and it's a great first female led superhero movie from the big two brands, and I'm so happy that it exists. But it reminds me a lot of Captain America, the first Captain America, because they're both period pieces. They both kind of shoot to the present day at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to get into making comparisons like that, it's basically Thor meets Captain America.
Okay, yeah.
It's like the fish out of water story from Thor, set in the setting of Captain America.
Oh yeah, totally. But you know what? I didn't think about Captain America at all while I watched it. And I
Me neither.
really liked that it was. And I don't know. This might have been something that you said. I'm confusing what people said. Who said what? So you may have said this.
I'll take credit for it all. That's fine.
I really like that it was not Nazis as the bad guys. Like, it was Germany, but it wasn't. It was World War I Germans instead of.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really great. I thought that, and I think you said this yesterday. I'm going to credit you because I think it was you, but I really like that. They did, like, Ghostbusters, a female-led movie, kind of took the male receptionist and made, and I think it worked for that movie for what it was, and I think it worked for Chris Hemsworth, but like they made him like the male bimbo. But I love that as serious as they took Wonder Woman in this movie, they also took the male lead in this, and they were both heroes. It wasn't like a hero and a sidekick or a hero and a bumbling male, you know?
Yeah, well, and I think, like, that's pretty important because I think, like, the real message that, like, one of the things that comes across in the movie, and I think it's, like, a pretty important, cool message, is just, like, this isn't necessarily about, like, rah-rah, like, look at how great women are. It is, like, more importantly about, like, look at this equal level playing field.
Yes.
Look how equally capable women are, if not more capable, in certain scenarios and things like that. But, like, I think it's, like, it's pretty important that the idea is, like, no, you can still have your male action hero. Here he is. You recognize him. He's Captain Kirk. He's a legitimate, huge action star, action hero. And here's a woman that can stand right next to him, shoulder to shoulder, and you're never going to bat an eye about whether that makes sense, because it does and it should. And I think that's, like, pretty important and cool.
Yeah, and the way that like every other male character in that. Not, I guess not like the small group, but like outside the small group, the minor characters. I love how they were all very dismissive of like there being a woman around. And Chris Pine's Steve Trevor was
he was great.
Yeah, I mean he really and like the character, like when he realized that she could block a bullet, like was right there, like, okay, you can definitely help me then, like you can stand on your own.
Yeah. I mean, I legitimately, I think I said this on the show, I did tear up twice during this movie.
Oh,
and
really?
The first time, and I'm pretty sure I could say both of these things really without spoiling the movie for anybody, because you can keep them in real loose terms. But the trench run, we'll call it.
Okay.
Fucking, like, I just started to get, like, real misty. I don't know what it was, but, like, her just deciding, like, no, I know what I'm capable of, and I know I'm capable of this, so I will do it, and I will lead. Like, and then just the way that's all, like, framed and shot and how exciting and dramatic, like, it just fucking, like, I got, like, real misty, like, just over the whole notion of, like, giving a woman a role like that. And, like, I don't know, it was, I like, loved it. And then, actually, her sort of, like, the big argument she has with Steve, just like at the end of the second act, just before you like get into the finale, kind of like brought me to tears a little bit too, because it just like that was how good and real that romance was in that movie. Was like I really believed where the two of them were in that moment and what that argument meant to both of them and for both of them, and kind of some of the ideas of heroism that they're both talking about in that moment. Were very powerful to me. Like, this is the first superhero movie I walked out of that I was like, Wonder Woman made me just like want to be a better person.
Yeah, like, it does. It totally
just charged me up on like, do the right thing, be the vocal leader, like do the right thing. It just charged me up on that.
Honestly, like that feeling that you get is like the feeling, and I don't want to
keep harping on Man of Steel, but like that's kind of the feeling I expect out of seeing a Superman movie.
Right. That's Dan loves Man of Steel because he said that's how Man of Steel made him feel. He like got up out of the movie and he was like, I want to be better. And I've never had that experience before. I definitively did not have it with Man of Steel. But I had it with, I had it with Furious 7, but that's a whole other fucking conversation that we don't want to get into right now. But this is the first superhero movie. I guess the Fast and Furious movies are superhero movies. We don't need to get into this right now. This is the first superhero movie that like made me feel that way. I like really, really felt that coming out of the theater. And it's because like that, it also has like some true, I think, heroics in it.
Yes.
And that's kind of one of the things you touched on before. Like by the end of the movie, both her and Steve do very noble, heroic things.
Yeah.
Like both of them are extremely big, heroic acts that have, mean a lot for both of them in their arcs. And I also don't think there's been a lot of good examples of that certainly there have been, but not a lot of good examples of that in modern superhero blockbusters.
No. And it's funny. I was discussing with one of my buddies today because I told him I saw this movie, and he was like, man, the last DC film I saw was 1989's Batman. I'm like, dude, first of all, get out there and see a movie. Secondly, you can skip you go see the Nolan stuff and then skip everything else and go right to Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And it is just a nice, and you've been very vocal about like the women-led comedy or action or stuff like through Twitter and your show. I like to movie.
Yeah. I think it's very important to get just the representation of women on the screen needs to grow, and it's like exciting that it is. It hasn't just begun. It's like the ball is like rolling and rolling faster and faster.
Yeah, because it's not like I don't want to sit here and say Wonder Woman's like kicking it off because it's certainly not. It's been happening more and more. But this is a nice example of like a big comic book brand doing it. And I think what's really nice is that as I think serialized and formatted that we've come to know Marvel and comic book movies in general, I think that because this movie was so good, it's going to make Marvel up their ante with Captain Marvel.
I really hope so, and I hope Marvel takes advantage of, this is something they do in their comic books a lot. I think people are kind of expecting this with the movie series, but I don't know if people realize what might actually be coming, which is using Infinity Gauntlet to like really be like a full-on entire universe reset.
Yeah.
So that they can hopefully maybe like learn some lessons from how much sort of like wheel spinning they've had to do, and get back to like more singular, complete movies.
Yeah.
Instead of the fully like I like the interwoven thing, but I think maybe that can be perfected. And I hope they take advantage of being able to use Infinity Gauntlet as like kind of a full reset and get back to some smaller, tighter movies, because I think that's one of the best things about Wonder Woman is that it like really does. I mean, this movie will even if the DCEU totally collapses and falls on its face, which seems very possible.
Yes, very possible.
Wonder Woman will live on, like the rest of them will feel like, these are all pieces of a whole that just like don't make any sense and kind of suck. Wonder Woman will like really feel, because it's such its own thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't even feel that connected to any of what they've done. In fact, one of the worst things about it is the fact that the movie opens with essentially like I literally thought Tim Meadows was gonna like come out from the background when Gal Gadot was looking at the picture and be like, Dewey Cox has to think about his entire life before he performs. The movie is a 2-hour-long flashback.
Yes, but you know what?
Which is only there to, serve as a continuity thing with the rest of the movies.
Absolutely. But you know what? I think, going back to the example of the DCEU collapses, even that opening, having it start on her looking at that photograph and having the Wayne Enterprise tie in.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt how much that film stands on its own because
no, not at all, for sure. I mean, that's another thing that like even if the rest of these movies get lost to time, like that will still just like either not make sense to somebody watching it, like not in a bad way, it just like won't really mean anything, or a sort of nerd will be like, oh cool, there's like a Batman reference.
Yes. Yeah.
They're from the same comics.
Yeah. It was, and I don't know, just and I do agree with you that you said yesterday that the color scheme was a little off.
Doesn't it seem like they I mean, maybe Patty Jenkins wanted to do that, but it really seems like they kind of took a very colorful movie and desaturated it to look more like the Zack Snyder version of this stuff.
Yeah, but you know what? It worked for me because it was set in World War I. So
yeah, I mean, people pointed that out, and there is a nice contrast between the island that she lives on, and the world that she enters, outside of that island. It's the island is certainly much more colorful than the rest of the movie. So there's a nice contrast between this sort of drab, war-torn world and the paradise that she's from.
Yeah, and because I did notice that difference, and like I said, but I think that because I kind of brought this up as more of a question yesterday about it being a period piece, if it made it work or not work, and I think I think that that the Snyder vision or whatever you want to call it, that desaturation of color, it works when you have it set in a period piece, because I don't know. I think Captain America did it with World War II, and it feels right. It just feels right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an aesthetic that we've kind of grown used to in a modern era of movies. When we set things in the past, we tend to make them a little bit hyper real. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes sense. We sort of go for the last 30 years or so, there's been sort of a hyper-real depiction of the past, where we sort of overdo it a little bit so that it's a sort of theatrical version of it. And this certainly played into that, I thought, and not which worked for it very well. But so I think that's kind of what I think we sort of have been trained to go yes, the past when we see,
and that makes sense.
When we see something that's sort of shot this way and looks this way.
Now,
what did you think of all the other characters? Because actually, one of the things I also enjoyed and didn't even think about really, and didn't take time to mention on the show was just the. I felt like they really did a good job of filling the world with a lot of interesting, fun side characters that I spent just enough time with to enjoy them. But they never felt like they got in the way. They never felt like they were just popping in at random. They all felt necessary, and they were. I don't know. It all worked very well.
Yeah, I agree. I love the all those additional characters and whatever. I don't know I don't think the group had a name, but the Wonder Woman clan or whatever that went into Germany. Because they all were so interesting, especially the Scottish guy. Super interesting, and we got enough of a backstory that I was satisfied with hearing what we got or seeing what we got, and me personally, I'm hoping that as much as I'm sure they want to get a Wonder Woman sequel to be set in a modern era, I would love to see that team together again. I know it's not going to have Chris Pine, but I would still love to see that team get back together and go on more adventures in period pieces. I just kind of dig that because I don't know. It's I guess it's just more unique. We're so used to seeing these comic book movies set in New York City or in modern technology that it's just nice to see something different. And
even if you think about it, in this movie in particular, it really helps with the Wonder Woman mythology. The idea of her riding a horse and using a sword and a shield is actually not that ridiculous in World War I.
No,
you know what I mean? We were still riding horses, and some generals were still carrying sabers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it even kind of helps. It allows you to sort of get deep into her sort of comic book aesthetic and have it still feel kind of legitimate to the world that it's set in. I am curious if what they'll do is just sort of whenever she's in a Justice League movie, whether that means she's in a Batman movie, an actual movie called Justice League, a Green Lantern movie, whatever, if that's when we'll see Wonder Woman in modern times, and then if maybe like the Wonder Woman series itself will be, allow them to just kind of like be anywhere in her history.
I would love that. I think that's genius, because that's something, and honestly, I don't think that would work for Captain America. And I'm comparing only because they have similar backgrounds in the sense that like they both are from an ancient time. I mean, I guess the 40s is ancient.
From a plot point, that wouldn't really work anyway, because he gets frozen.
Yes. Yeah, but with Wonder Woman, like, because she is alive throughout all this, it would be, I think, and then again, like another like kind of breath of fresh air in this saturated comic book movie world that we live in now.
Right.
To see something done like that, I think, that is a genius idea. They should listen to this and steal that, because
well, like, think about the cool things you could do, because like you wouldn't even have to like jump right to World War II. You wouldn't even have to do another war movie necessarily. You could have it be like you could do like an espionage movie set in the Cold War. You know what I mean? Like you could have her like learn, have it be about her sort of like learning other skills and things. You know what I mean? Like having to work undercover amongst the humans. You know.
Oh my God, that would be an amazing flick. I mean, that's something that, again, with this character and the fact that there is basically so much history between what we've already seen and where she's at the literally at the end of the credits.
And you wouldn't even have to do it chronologically.
No,
you could bounce it. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be any. You wouldn't have to do that. You could just go like, "What's the next good Wonder Woman story we can think of?"
And
we got a good idea that would be set in 1970. And then what's the next one? Oh, we have a good idea that would be set in the 40s. And you could just do that. It wouldn't. They could each just be chapters, comic books in her history.
And that is, like, to me, like, true comic book, that you can just hop anywhere you want in a story. And that makes the perfect singular story. And I don't know. I think they have something special with Wonder Woman. It's taken them. This is their fourth movie in the universe. And they have something real special with it.
And you just know that a lot of these characters, whatever, their history does not allow for them to do that, or they only make sense set in a modern times. Like, there's going to be so many DC movies that are set, quote unquote, now, and she can pop in and out around all of those.
Yeah.
And we could, we'll have plenty of current Wonder Woman stories because of it.
It's almost the way that I almost want to see how Hulk is used. It's like I want to just see Hulk bumming around in other movies and not see a solo flick.
Instead of getting his own, just have him just kind of.
But with her, you get good story. Yeah, with her, you can get a good story solo wise. So I hope that they can, and it's the same kind of hope that you have after you see Deadpool, where like I hope that they just, when they go on to do a sequel to this movie, because right now for me DCEU is simply Wonder Woman. Like I can kind of ignore the other movies. Like let's just
I'm right
build
there
upon
with
it.
you.
Yeah, it's
every time her fucking guitar riff plays, I just want to like get up out of my seat and throw a chair at someone. Yeah. It's like she is just, and like again, no other superhero in the modern era even has a theme song you could hum.
Yeah.
Like they just fucking, there's some magic to this character, and especially like right now, it's like the perfect moment for it. They just are nailing it with her. And it really, to me, that's like, I feel like you just have to give credit to basically Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot for that.
Yeah.
Like, Gal Gadot sort of created the performance for her in BVS, and then Patty Jenkins and whoever wrote that movie, which unfortunately I don't know, I don't have that in front of me. Kind of, we're able to craft a really, because I don't know that the studio. I feel like we have plenty of evidence like what they think they're doing. Yeah,
I think that this is like a great opportunity for them to kind of,
recalibrate.
Yeah, and it sounds like maybe
you got to think that they are so mad right now that they jumped so fast into Justice League to try and catch up with Marvel.
Yeah,
because think about if they had just waited to do, if they had waited a little bit this Wonder Woman movie would have come out, people would have fallen in love with Wonder Woman, and it would have been like, oh, okay, fucking drop everything. We're doing a Justice League movie, and fuck a Batman, fuck a Superman. Wonder Woman is going to be the leader of our Justice League. She'll be the one that gets them together. And that would even make sense with the way they've established her character.
Yeah.
Like, and they would make, that would be huge. They'd be fucking, they would make headlines with that. You know what I mean? Because that's like, that would be, man, they must be, I hope someone just got fired.
Well, I mean, I know that they're kind of making some readjustments, but I mean, like every movie does. So, I'm not getting too excited for Justice League because it looks like it. I mean, see, I liked Ben Affleck as Batman.
I loved him as Batman.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that they kind of just learned from Batman versus Superman and applied all the good.
Well, and I think Jason Momoa looks very fun as Aquaman. There's good stuff in that trailer between the two of them. But the moment that Aquaman just like is sitting on the side of a Batmobile that is speeding like a missile like down a street and then just like says something cocky to Bruce Wayne and jumps off of it is the most absurd looking dumb thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's just like, oh, you've learned nothing. You don't know what you have no idea what you're doing.
And I'm also excited to see, DC, where they've failed a lot with their movies. They're taking charge with at least the women-led ones because they also have Joss with Batgirl, and I think that's going to be strong. That's going to be a strong movie.
I mean, I think that Joss Whedon is just a pretty great writer. So, him getting to write his own Batgirl, I think, will be pretty interesting. He's got a great track record with just female-led stuff.
So I like that. Just as soon as they announced that, I was like, "This is like a match made in heaven. This makes sense."
Yeah.
And this was back when a time where they're like, you could be worried about Wonder Woman. Like it was. When they first started talking about Joss and Batgirl, I was like on the fence for Wonder Woman because all these trailers looked really good, but it's still from the DCEU.
Yeah, I know.
So, but bottom line, I think
that's why I think you got to give credit to Patty Jenkins because it does seem so. Like the one thing that DC has talked about, and I've always been like, yeah, we'll see about that. Seemed like it was bearing out not to be true. Was like, well, the way we're going to be different is not put somebody in charge of the whole universe and let directors have their own vision and make their own movies. It does seem like that's what happened with this one.
Yeah.
And I think it was very much to its benefit.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, it was such the action in that movie was just, it was some of the best action I've seen out of any movie.
I'll tell you this. I think that it suffers a little bit from something that just like a ton of action movies suffer from right now, which is like a lot of the action happens in like weird medium shots and close-ups, so it's a little bit hard to see what's happening. A lot of shaky cam, a lot of cutting and stuff. But I thought for sure I was done with like speed ramping and slow-mo in action scenes. And I loved every fucking second they showed women just doing crazy acrobatic stuff and like slowing it down, speeding it up. There was some really inventive, cool stuff.
Yes, it was. Again, I think at the end of the day, it's just like we have a really great movie, and to top it off, it is led by a strong female character and actor. And it's just,
I really liked her in the movie a lot.
Yes, it's just this episode that we're doing now, I'm splitting between you and this person, Kacey Spivey, who I talked to. She's an actress and show host and producer for Screen Rant out in LA, and we had a really interesting discussion about female-led Hollywood projects and you came up in conversation about because you're my male friend that's like a real big proponent of it, and we had like an awesome conversation about women in Hollywood, and so I wanted to talk to her about this too. And I'm really excited to sit down and chat with her to see what her take is, because it is like we were discussing like
I'm gonna have to listen to this episode I'm on.
She asked me last time, like, can you go and watch like a female-driven movie and like appreciate it and like feel something for it? I'm like, absolutely. Like, I went to, like, Ghostbusters is an example. I went to that movie. That movie had problems, but it wasn't because of the actresses involved.
It didn't have anything to do with the fact that they were women. That there are story problems and some weird things about that movie.
Yeah, and like there were funny parts that I laughed at. Like it was they
I
were
think
good.
that movie's very funny.
Yeah. So like it is. It's it's a shame that like I read something somewhere that someone saw the Wonder Woman, they really loved it, really dug that the how we dig it, and saw someone walking out with it was a man walking out with his daughters, and they were discussing how awesome the movie was, and as the other guy walked away with his daughters, he's like, yeah, for a female lead. And like it's like why, like, that's not, like, this is a good movie. And it's just awesome that it has a female lead because it's giving them their dues, Yeah.
So. Well, like both of those moments that made me tear up. Certainly, some of it was just like how I don't know, just like how much I do sort of like think about this stuff, and so like seeing a woman get to do some of those things was like very incredible to me.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it was just because it is just that good. It's just like really effective movie making, really effective storytelling. The heroism of that moment is really what makes me tear up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that's really important too. That it's just like, no, like I can get on board and get invested with this. Regardless of the gender of the lead,
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think this movie is made by the fact that it's a female,
right? But
it absolutely, it just is nice to see that that's what we got, because it's I guess a special moment in time, and in this where they're it's not gender equality right now, so it's just nice to see it happening.
Yeah, I mean it's just, like it made over $100 million for the weekend domestically. Yeah. That's like, that's a box office record for a female director. One of the big, I think overall, like, huge issues, like with not having like good female representation on screen is we don't let a lot of women tell stories.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing that like this had the opening it had, because I think that that's the only way the studios go, oh, maybe we should let women tell stories, which is unfortunate, but this is just no matter how you slice it, it's good that this made that much money and did so well.
I agree. Sorry, I'm adjusting a cable to get rid of a buzz.
That's okay. I was hearing that.
No, it's I don't think there's much more we can say about it. It's just a strong movie, and I'm so happy that it exists.
People are going to love it.
Yes, if you haven't seen it, get out there and see it.
I can't think of anybody I wouldn't recommend this to.
I agree, 100%. Maybe not our current leadership of the country, but that's another story.
I mean, yeah. Yep.
On that note, Garrett, thanks.
I'd rather talk about Fast and the Furious than that.
Well, you know what? We're going to have you back in the studio so that we're face to face. We can chat movies all day long.
Love to be back.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me on the live show.
Yes, totally. Anytime, that open door policy when it comes to Garrett Smith, and everything is awesome.
See, listen, I'm now going to start, just because I just want to freak Mike out, this idea that I'm gunning for his position, and this has all been part of it.
I would like to see how that plays out. All right, well, Garrett, thanks for calling in, and thanks for sharing your thoughts on Wonder Woman.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me on the show. Love it.
Yep.
Hey, can I do this really quick?
Yeah.
People can check out my podcast, I Like to Movie, at I Like to Movie. That's the numeric 2 on Facebook and Twitter and all those places. Check us out on iTunes. It's a movie show. Hey.
Yes, and you can at Philadelphia is where you can personally find Garrett on Twitter.
Yes, at Philadelphia.
Cool. All right.
EmmaLetterbox.com, Philadelphia. Great, cool. Plug myself. Now I'm an idiot of myself. Bye.
All right, big thanks to Garrett for being on the show. Normally, he likes to do things in person. He likes to come over to the house. getting caught up with the fiance and the kids and whatnot, and just hanging out in the old studio that we're in the process of rebuilding. So you will be back in studio at some point over the summer, so we can sit down and chat about whatever we want, honestly. But before we get to our next conversation with Kacey, who is just a wonderful person, I just want to talk about the 5th annual Philadelphia Podcast Fest. That's right. Starting in June 14th, we're kicking off a series of specials where I sit down and talk to as many of the Philadelphia podcasters as I can, just to get their story, to see what they're going to do or what they have planned, what they think about live shows, what they think about the Philadelphia podcasting scene. And it all kicks off June 14th when we air our Amalgam Comics and Coffeehouse live show. We had Ophidian The Cobra on, who has his podcast, Bump and Grind, as part of the Philadelphia Podcast Fest. Spoilers, we didn't really talk about the Podcast Fest, but it was a nice, easy way for me to kick things off. But we're going to be kicking things off until July 19th is the last Philadelphia podcast special that we put out there. In between that month, we'll be talking to a lot of podcasters. I'm really excited for it. We're going to be airing 2 to 3 specials a week for this series of podcast promotion in Philadelphia. And speaking of the Philadelphia Podcast Fest, my show, Everything is Awesome, will be airing live at Tattooed Moms on Sunday, July 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make it out to Philadelphia. Come check out Everything is Awesome live. Doom Thugs, Full Belly Laughs, all the great shows, Dissecting the 80s, High Res Pod, Skyrim Addict, all these great podcasts will be at the Philadelphia Podcast Festival this year, the 5th annual one. It's bigger, it's badder. Over 55 shows are partaking this year, and I'm happy to say that I'm going to be helping run things at Tattooed Moms on July 15th and 16th. So it's going to be an unofficial Super Friends, Everything is Awesome meetup as well. So come on down to Philadelphia, or come up to Philadelphia if you haven't been. Come check out some cool podcasts. If you want to come down the weekend of July 15th and 16th, we'll just hang out as a couple super friends watching some podcasts. It's going to be a fun time. All right, enough of the self-promotion. Let's get on with the show. Here it is, my conversation with Kacey Spivey about the film Wonder Woman. Because the way we I guess it's not the way we left our conversation, but a good portion of the last 20 minutes of our conversation we had last time was about women in Hollywood and whatnot. Yeah. So I figured with Wonder Woman coming out, you were one of 2 people I wanted to sit down and just have a conversation about the movie with.
Yeah. Oh,
so I mean, obviously you saw it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on it?
Oh my gosh, it's silly. You know, I probably shouldn't be like, I'm a silly woman for crying, but
yeah, it kind of undersells the whole point of this conversation.
It definitely undermines my point, but. I really, it was a very emotional experience for me in that I didn't realize what I'd never seen on screen before until I saw it on screen.
Yeah. So my friend, and I don't know where the conversation is falling in the course of this episode. I have a feeling it's going to lead it off, which is weird because it's 2 dudes talking about a movie starring a woman. But I think that's the ironic kind of humor that I want to go for anyway. But he had the same feeling. He was telling me yesterday that he cried. He wept at 2 big points in the movie. And the movie didn't bring me to tears. Not that which is actually kind of a shock because I have cried during the Muppet movies, so I'm an easy person to get crying. But the movie did 100% we were talking about, can I get a connection or feel a connection to a movie or to a woman in that's in the lead or whatever. And absolutely this I mean, I think we can all agree is the best DC movie at the very least.
Oh, thank goodness.
I mean, this movie had so much pressure behind it being the first superhero that's a female. And then also it's in the DC universe, so
right.
Could have gone either way, really.
I was like, oh, come on, Patty, bring it through, because the team over there at DC. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but they were going great, and then this past year was just weird. I don't know what happened, and so I was like, come on, please, bring it through for just the reputation itself.
Yes. Well, and not only did it, I think, at least buy DC some time to, like, kind of still figure out what they need to do. Because the great thing about Wonder Woman is that it also stands out on its own. So, like, the whole extended universe over at DC could collapse with Justice League. Yeah. And they kind of abandon it or rebuild it or whatever. And this movie will always stand out. It's not like the links that link it to the other movies that are in the very beginning and the very end of this movie.
Right.
They're so, like, minimal that anyone that watches this in 20 years that may have forgotten about the rest of the DCEU, it's not going to matter to them. They're not gonna be confused by it. The movie is still just rock solid, and it's like a nice change of pace to just see. I guess not my gender represented. Like it was your gender that was represented on the screen in like such a badass way.
Right, and it was such a well told story, and I think we've been desperate for that. Especially within the comic book movies for a while, Marvel does a really good job about making a really fun experience for an audience, with Guardians and, even with, Iron Man and Avengers. It's fun to go see those films. It's a comic book movie. It's going to be funny. It's going to be great. Whatever. But you're probably not going to go in and walk out differently. With like Christopher Nolan's, Batman movies, Dark Knight, and I feel like I watched those movies, and the way that he told the story and the challenges that the characters faced were moral challenges that I, as an audience member, had to think about. When he's which boat do you want to blow up? That kind of question when you're like, wow, what would I do in that situation? And I feel like this movie, regardless of whether it was a female movie or not or whatever, it finally kind of got back to that place of like, there were times when at the end, are we allowed to spoil things?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I was equating that boat moment to that moment when she, at the very end of the film, where she thinks she's killed Ares.
Yes.
And nothing happened. And she has to decide whether it's worth it for her to keep fighting for mankind. That was a question back to like that boat moment of like, would I? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you said, this is one of those movies that make you walk out like feeling different. And and I think what's cool about this movie is, because it's got a female lead, I felt that way too. And that's kind of just a cool thing, is that I connected with Wonder Woman in a way that, is probably way different than you or any other female really. But like, I still connected on some level. And like, I do feel those, like that story, that decision she has to make, like it does. I put myself in that situation because that's a situation that anybody can be put in, not just Wonder Woman. And I think that's the wonderful thing about this movie is that, it kind of sucks that we're in this still era where we still have to say like, well, this is such an awesome movie with a female lead, and it proves that like female lead movies work and blah blah blah. Because like honestly, it is, at the end of the day, just a really great movie, whether or not it was Wonder Woman or Wonder Man. Like, I don't think that movie would have changed if it was a male leading role or a female leading role.
Yeah. And in some ways it was strong. It was, I don't want to say it stronger, but in some ways it did have a lot of opportunity for compassion and subtlety and things that perhaps a typical male superhero might glaze over in a movie about him. They were able to kind of dig in to the more emotional moments that I think both genders can relate to.
Yeah. And what I think was a really great move was not having Steve Trevor be like kind of a bumbling idiot. Like he is just as heroic as Wonder Woman in this movie. And you know, spoilers, you know, like he goes out in a blaze of glory, you know, saving millions of people from this deadly gas, while Wonder Woman saves millions of people by defeating Ares.
Right.
So like I think that is something that I feel like if I had written something like this, which I couldn't at all, but if it was me, like I feel like I would have been like way trying to overcompensate the fact that like my gender has been terrible to your gender, and I wouldn't have made Steve Trevor so heroic. I would have made him have some of those like I guess reverse role, you know, gender on him and make him a little bit more bumbling.
Right.
And I'm so happy that the movie didn't go that route, because it makes it that much stronger of a movie to kind of almost like, I don't want, probably not reset the DC universe on, but like almost reset the DC universe on, because you need something strong at that foundation. And right now it doesn't have many strong films, if any, besides Wonder Woman at this point.
No, I'm so glad. And I hear people talking like, you know, forget Justice League. I just want Wonder Woman 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And you know what? So I had, and if you, when people listen to this episode, you've already heard Garrett and I talk about it. So it's maybe retreading, but he had such an amazing idea where the way that they should handle, you know, the DC universe and Wonder Woman at this point is like have her in the modern times. And I know they're not doing that. I've already read that the sequel sounds like it's going to be set in modern time.
Yeah.
But I think this is the way smarter move is have her be in modern times in all these other movies, like have her jump in and out of, you know, Batman and all these Justice League type movies. And then when it gets back to Wonder Woman, do more like period time pieces and whatnot. And I see, and that gets me, because I love this felt, and I said it with Garrett, I hate comparing it to Captain America because it's such the easy compare. Right. But I mean, it's like Captain America: First Avenger. The reason I love that movie so much was partially because it was set in a period piece. It was set in World War II. And that's, you know, one of the reasons why I love this movie. Probably less so than why I love Captain America, but I love the idea of like hopping just throughout time, because with Captain America, you really have one era besides contemporary times to talk about, because he's frozen in ice for so long. Right. With Wonder Woman, there's so much untapped material between World War I now and, you know, when we last leave her at the end of the credits here in the first movie. Right.
And it's funny because, I mean, I don't feel like it was a super like historical movie. I wasn't really focused on like abiding by the historical facts of things.
Oh yeah, no, neither was I.
So it was nice to kind of have a little bit of a suspension of disbelief with it too, with also having that genre feel, and it kind of reminds, when I think Wonder Woman, I think we associate that like classic Wonder Woman, so we already get a retro vibe with her. So it kind of meets modern with retro in a way. I really just kind of like every artist's first album that hits, it's like, okay, that's great. Second album, it's gonna solidify you, or you know, you're gonna go down the drain. But I'm really hoping that Patty, I really think she'll make a wise decision, because did you see that she was up for the second Thor movie, right? Yeah, so she was up to direct one of the Thor movies, and she saw that it was going poorly, and she said, I need to step out of this movie, because if this movie does bad, it won't be just another movie that did bad. It'll be, the female director made it tank. So she stepped away. So I think she's got a really good compass for what makes a good film, and hopefully hopefully she'll stick to her guns.
And for what I heard, what's nice about the DC side of things is, I either read or someone told me that the way it's set up slightly differently than the way Marvel does things. Marvel kind of has a big think tank and one guy, running that ship to make sure that they're telling the story we want to tell overall. Whereas, in DC, they're kind of letting the directors tell the stories they want to tell. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that necessarily shows in previous movies. Because I haven't seen Suicide Squad. I've tried. Desperately have tried.
God bless you.
But it's just it's the movie that puts me to sleep. And the other ones are Zack Snyder. So it is a singular vision. So this is the first movie we've seen that's watchable and not from Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
So it is completely different, and I think like my friend, the one complaint he kind of had is that it felt a little desaturated, like the Snyderverse movies, and for me it's kind of up in the air. Did they pull that because they want to make it feel like those movies, or did they do that because the setting called for it? Like, that to me is for me it felt like World War I called to have that kind of desaturation.
Desaturation in what way?
In the color, you know how they grace.
The color. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, it's just what Snyder does to these movies that we all, or at least I complain about.
Well, I can't see the film.
Yeah.
What's going on in that dark room?
Yeah.
That bothers me too. But it's weird because I don't even, maybe it's a branding thing in that Marvel is so colorful. I mean, we have Ragnarok coming out that's just it's just so much color, and Guardians, so much color. And then DC is definitely a darker, more grittier. I wonder if that was with the Dark Knight and stuff. They were just oh, that tone is moody and cool, so let's keep that going.
Well, but Wonder Woman is so not that. Watching the film, it's got that the color scheme of that. It's got that gritty desaturation in the color. But the movie itself is kind of just a wonderful movie, and it's not dark and gloom as far as what's going on, and it's not I don't know. It made me smile more than any other movie, and not just because it was better, just because it seemed like it wanted me to smile.
Well, I can see Patty Jenkins going, okay, when they're on the island in Utopia, it's colorful. Because if you think back to the very beginning of the movie, if you look in the trailers, the blues are super saturated. Greens, all of their skin tone is just glowing. And they're, the ocean is this beautiful crystal blue. And directly outside of that, it's gray because of the war. And I understand that if it's evil and good, or war and not war. But it was frustrating to me that okay, I get that we're entering into a sick world, but does it really have to be so gray?
Yeah, and that was especially in that transition scene when Steve crashes and you see the Germans stick his head through the force field or whatever. You know what? The DC universe has done a lot worse to me, so I'm okay with it. I can live with it, and honestly, it's just that the movie was just so well done. I the way that Wonder Woman was treated, was as a character that was just a strong character, both obviously physically, but on paper too, and playing the fish out of water when she's in man's land and man's world. It's a weaker writer or director, or maybe 5-10 years ago, it would have been depicted a lot differently, with her being a lot more
idiotic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And still trying to make her like the star of the movie, but make her idiotic in this world she doesn't understand. So
I think it was so important to have that scene on the boat right before they got to that, because if you think about it, if that scene where she wasn't like, he was, oh, do you know about the flesh? Oh yeah, I've read all the books, and the conclusion is that you're not necessary. She's okay. She's smart. She's read. She knows about what's going on, or she knows about humanity. She just doesn't know this particular world. So now she's walking through it less of like, I don't know anything, and more just like a foreigner in a different country. Like if I were to go to China, I'd be like, I have no idea what's happening here. I can't understand anyone.
Or that like same vibe of like just if we were to go back, or I guess go into the future 100 years or whatever, because I'm sure she read nothing about automobiles. Like she read about just like kind of concepts and whatnot of man. So getting into what, like, for I guess lack of a better term, a more modern world. It was that, and that was it all played so well, and it's just, I don't know, it's just as soon as I saw the movie, and more specifically as soon as I saw that it was like getting good early reviews, because I was I saw the trailers for it, and just like everyone else, I was like, oh, this looks like DC is doing something right, but you know what, they've tricked me a few times now.
Oh yeah.
So like I don't know if I can trust it, and like I now, like, with movies being $15 a ticket out, at least here in Philly, like I don't go and see all the movies anymore that I used to see.
Right.
And to get me to the theater and to see it by myself, because I hate seeing movies by myself. I'm like that guy that needs to be with somebody. So I went and saw this movie by myself.
Yes.
At 10:10 at night. Very sleepy Kev went to go see this movie. I didn't fall asleep. Like Suicide Squad put me to sleep. I enjoyed it. Unlike, I finally saw Batman versus Superman, and I'll say this: all this talk about Wonder Woman and whatnot being so great, and me loving this movie, I will say that I did walk out of it with a little bit of the feeling of, wow, I did build this up a little too much in my mind, because I did not walk out disappointed, but I walked out saying like, I think I expected a little more, and that's on me. That's my fault.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I just watched Batman vs. Superman maybe about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And ironically, going into that movie saying this is going to be the worst movie in the history of movies, like, I walked away saying, I mean, I would probably watch this again if I happened to pass it on HBO or something. Like, like it's not as bad as I had built it up in my head.
Right.
Which is, like, it's so, it's weird how, I guess, we can do that to ourselves. We can make a movie better or worse by just thinking about it too much, really.
Yeah, I was in there kind of cringing. I am kind of a terrible person to go see movies or shows with. I mean, notoriously, because I don't have a poker face. And it's like one of my biggest strengths, but also my biggest weakness. I would be a great judge on like Dancing with the Stars or something, because I'm just like, what's happening? So a lot of times when I'm in a theater and I don't like the movie, it's just like, I mean, I'm trying to fall asleep, I'm squirming, I get up, I go to the bathroom for 15 minutes, I come back, like, but this movie, I was on the edge. My elbows were on my knees. I was into this movie, leaning forward the whole time, and I was just really engaged in it. And
oh my God.
Like those little moments where like the person like, bloop, oh, there's a new universe here. Like that was silly, of course, but like they didn't ruin the entire experience for me.
No, it's and I would say not only, and I guess this is more Marvel's fault, but the movie was so good in a DC movie that I sat through the credits to see if there was something after
Me too.
and I'm looking at my watch as the credits go through, and I'm like, if this was any other DC movie, I'd probably be out of here by now. But
oh yeah.
And I guess really I can't blame DC for that, because Marvel has me trained to do that BS. The only thing Wonder Woman did was being so good that I couldn't leave without seeing something more.
Well, and the ending credits were really cool. They were this really I don't even know, it was some kind of animation, but
Oh yeah.
it was really awesome. I was
Yeah.
like, well, I just really want to just watch this for a second because it's cool. But I did the same thing. I was like, am I supposed to stay? Am I supposed to go?
And
I don't know.
and at 10:10 at night on a Sunday night, there weren't many people in the theater. There was
really?
probably about 20 people, and typically at least half the people walk out, no matter how many people are in there, because they don't care, or they're not trained by Marvel. So like I'd say, and everyone left. It was like 3 people in there, and I'm like, okay. What if one of these people leaves? I know, like, I see them on their phone. They're looking it up. So, like, I can leave if they leave. And, like, one of them got up and left. I was like, all right. But he waited down at the hallway at the bottom. I'm like,
oh, to see.
Yeah, so, like, we all got everyone got by this movie for not having. But that's okay, because, I tried to read as much of the credits I could, because it's definitely a movie that was, like, worth, like, everyone that worked on that film was well worth knowing who they were, or at least, in that moment, knowing it was because it is just taking it out of the DC world, taking it out of the Marvel world, out of the comic book world. It was just a good movie. It's comic book movies have this issue now where they're kind of formulated. Yes. And I'd say the only thing that this movie suffers from is that last 30 minutes seems like it was the studio saying, all right, you did what you wanted to do, but here's the standard comic book movie fight that you need to have.
All the guys were saying that it was too much fighting.
Well, and I would say just like that, I don't know, it's just like the ending fight, the last fight it was just like the same thing that happens in every comic book movie. And it's like very CGI, and not that it was like bad CGI, it's just like it's I get this. For the first, I guess 2 hours of this film or so, it was just its own unique thing, and like really before that battle, there was only 2 other battles in the movie the No Man's Land battle was that was the scene that my buddy teared up during, like just that scene of her shedding the cloak and climbing up.
Oh yeah, like taking that shield and just going at it. Oh man.
And inspiring the team of men behind her to like, okay, we can do this. If one person can go up there and risk their lives for this, then we can go up there and help her and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a good one.
It is, and that is probably for me, like that is the best scene of the film, and it's, or at least the best action scene in that film.
Right.
It's because I'll tell the fight that happens on the beach, amazing, really really good, but it was. The CGI did kind of like play with me a little, and I don't know if I was just paying attention to it too much, because there's like obviously like Robin Wright's not flipping around like that in real, like for real, like that's clearly CGI, and it just, I don't know, there was something about it that like I don't know, maybe it was too late to see the movie, but it was, I mean, regardless, it's still good. I mean, top to bottom, that movie, at the end of the day, is probably one of the best comic book movies we've seen.
Right.
Best since The Dark Knight, probably, like especially in DC, because I think The Dark Knight kind of ranks up there as the best comic book movie.
Yeah.
And Wonder Woman's up there now.
Yeah. In regards to the fighting, there was this scene at the very, very beginning, when her mom says, okay, you're going to train her harder. You're going to make her better than even you, right? Yeah. And then when she's training the little girl, she keeps saying, you don't believe in yourself. You have so much more power than you can even imagine. That's the first time I teared up, because that is something that resonates with me as a human. And as a woman too, is, I mean, we just had the Women's March, and no one expected those numbers, and it's kind of, hearing that on screen in this monumental comic book movie experience, and hearing you're underestimating yourselves, you're more powerful than you even know, I thought really spoke volumes and echoed into more than just what was happening in the movie. And I really appreciated that. And then I cried when Robin died. I was like, no, Claire. No.
It was, and it's weird because comic book movies usually do have that one scene that get me, and maybe I don't know if it was just because like I was just so amped to, I guess, finally go see a movie and also know that I'm probably seeing a quality movie.
Yeah.
There was nothing at the first viewing that got me that way. Looking back at it, like, and kind of talking about the No Man Land scene.
Yeah.
That like I could actually foresee that being a scene that gets me in the future on future viewing when I kind of just have like no expectations this time around or that time around.
Yeah.
Because it is like, I don't know, just the way my buddy described it and like being able to replay that in my head, it is like, wow, that is such a powerful message right there. And I wish my daughter was older because I would have loved to like take her to a movie that's like that, that's so empowering for a little girl.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's there, and I'm glad that, like, I think the best thing about this is that you know, Marvel, who is kind of like, they're usually the ones that do these things first, and they weren't the first ones to do a solo female superhero movie first.
Right.
All that means is that they're going to up their ante for Captain Marvel. Yes.
I hope they go. I wonder what their flavor will be, because they are more on the lighthearted side, but Brie is so talented that I'm like, I don't know if it'll be as meaningful and heartbreaking, but it could be, because Guardians, there were some moments in Guardians where I was like, ugh, right in the heart, you know?
Yeah, I think Guardians, out of all the Marvel movies, both Guardians movies, I think have probably the most feels than any. Even like the early Marvel stuff with Iron Man, like I can't really, and obviously it's been a while since I've seen Iron Man, but I can't think of one Marvel movie that has been like, that's done something that would try to even make you feel something, and not that that was Guardians' goal. It's clearly a way more, you know, fun adventure than the DC movies, but I think they did a good job at trying to get you. Like, I mean, the opening scene to the first Guardians movie with little Peter Quill, I mean, that got me crying.
It's funny because it's like, you know, we're talking about men versus women. Like, you know, the scene with the little girl got me, and the scene with the little boy got you. So I wonder if it is true that kind of like, you know, you empathize with someone who you identify with.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's it. I'm sure, like, you know, as much as I want to be moved, and I am moved by, you know, I think last time we talked, it was like Ghostbusters was like, regardless of it being, you know, not a great script, like I was able to like attach myself to those characters and still have a good time, and like Bridesmaid, I guess, is probably the better example at a comedy, but I was able to like attach myself to those characters. I'll never be able to attach to them or feel for them or empathize with them the way you can, and same vice versa, even though, you know, for the last forever it's been, you know, a male dominated industry, and maybe you can you know, get more attached to a male character more so than I can a female character. But
that's what I was feeling when I was watching the movie. I was like, I didn't know that I could empathize this much with a character. I didn't know, and I feel like every movie I've watched prior to this with a male-dominated character, I kind of walked out like you did. Like, great movie, cool. Didn't really get me, but like, awesome, whatever, you know.
Well, and Wonder Woman. Like I said, it didn't move me to tears yet. Sometimes a movie needs a second viewing for that, or sometimes you just need to have Kermit the Frog give a pretty good speech. Depending on, I guess, my mood, but I Wonder Woman is one that, like, you know, again, I guess I can't fully attach myself to that character because I am not the same sex, but it is one, like, it is something that, again, it's for me, like,
it's just a great movie, so I kind of can attach myself to that character to a certain degree. But it means something much more to you or to my daughter or to any female than it does to me.
Yes.
Because I've seen that same cool action, and I've seen myself just, as a Greek god, not the floppy version of me. I've seen myself represented on TV or movies so much that, it's almost kind of the same experience for me, because like I don't care if it's a male or female, but that's me. Like obviously there's people out there that, want to set the world on fire because there's a good female action movie out there, but that's on them.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So where do you want now? I mean, we know that they're taking Wonder Woman to modern times. So I guess knowing that, like, what do you want to see out of the next movie? Aside from it being obviously like make it good.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just really hope they don't like Justice League it, where they're like everything is like has to be a ploy to attach to the rest of the universe, and like suddenly Batman shows up and whatever. Like, just give it a rest. Just give her own space.
And I want them to do that with, honestly, I think that's what the DC movies need, is they all need their own space.
Yeah.
It's it works for Marvel. Marvel's able to kind of have everything interwoven that way, and they're making it work. And you know what? I almost to the point where maybe it's starting to work against them, because it's like I haven't seen Doctor Strange or Ant-Man. Like I pick and choose what movies I see for Marvel now,
right?
Because there's just 3 of them a year or whatever,
right.
And B, it's just like, well, sometimes like I feel like I need to have seen something else to be able to really get this movie.
Yeah.
And with Wonder Woman, you didn't.
No, exactly. Yeah, I could have never watched a DC movie and enjoyed myself exactly the same way. Yeah, with Avengers Infinity War, like literally every character, I wake up and there's another character that's spotted on the set from the universe. And you're like, really? Like, what is the female Thor? What's her name? I forgot. Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Like, even Valkyrie's in this freaking movie. Like, what? So I'm wondering if, I would like to see if that movie does well, or if there's too many characters that it tanks.
And that's something that it is kind of scary. Like, I guess Marvel keeps getting to a point where it's like, wow, like, is this going to work? And like, first it was Iron Man. Then it was like, I guess for me, then it was Thor, because like, how is Thor going to work? But it did. Right. But then it was the Avengers. How are you going to get them all on one screen? And then it was like Guardians of the Galaxy. How are you going to get a tree and a raccoon to work?
Right.
And now it's like to the point of like how. Like it feels like it could suffer from like what Spider-Man 3 suffered from. Yeah. Just like too much going on, but I don't know. It's so far they haven't disappointed in a way that really makes you be like, ooh, Batman versus Superman.
Right.
Marvel hasn't done that yet, but I mean, they could. This could be their first, and it would be an expensive mistake for them.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess in summary, I just hope that they leave Patty alone with Wonder Woman 2 and just let her do her work, and not surprise come in at the last second and go, well, we cut the trailer to be, fun and funny, so we got to reshoot,
Yeah, and I'm, and my buddy said this too, like with Justice League, there's no way that they're not kicking themselves right now and saying we should have waited for Wonder Woman to even start filming or writing Justice League, because at this point, I think the way better movie for Justice League is not Batman running around collecting all these heroes to form a team, but Wonder Woman doing that.
Yep.
And how awesome would that be, is having, again, like, just another step in the right direction of, like, equality is having a woman lead the Justice League. And not that, I guess, like, technically she is one of the leaders of the Justice League, but, like, let her do it. Like, again, like, I love Batman. Like, my issue with Superman is he's allergic to a rock. I said it before with you. Like, and that's why I'm so happy for Wonder Woman, because it's something so new, so different, and not that same old story. But kind of the same. I can say the same thing about Batman. Like,
Batman I've seen done to death. And as much as I love Batman and I love Ben Affleck as Batman, like, I would love to see them just, like, do more with Wonder Woman. Like, make Wonder Woman, I guess for DC, make her the Batman of this universe, and she be the one that goes around and does all this crap.
Right. That would be so awesome. And I think it would be really believable scenes, because women do that all the time. Hey, okay, I'm getting everyone together. You know, it's going to be a fun thing.
See, now you're just stereotyping it. I guess we can just leave it at, like, at the end of the day, it's just, I'm happy that, you know, that this movie exists, and I'm happy that it was done so well, and not because, I mean, obviously it needed to be done well to have a valid argument for, you know, Patty Jenkins and for, you know, a woman-led movie. But I'm just happy that it did well, because that movie stands on its own feet, whether it's a male or female at its lead, because it's just good. It's a good action movie. It's a good comic book movie. It's probably, like I said, it's probably in my top 5, if not top 3 of comic book movies.
Yeah, same.
It's so good, and so it's comic book movies, like I said earlier, suffers from like a formula now, and I think Wonder Woman broke that formula.
Yes, agreed.
At least where they were allowed to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before I let you go, Kacey, go ahead and give some plugs away.
Cool.
I know I saw you doing some interesting things on the Twitter sphere, so talk about it.
Oh, yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter at HeyCase, HEY_Case, KACE. I post, I do news for Screen Rant, so I write articles and do movie video reviews. I also do sketch comedy, so I put links out to the latest sketch things I've done. You can follow me on Twitter for that, or Facebook. I have a Facebook page. I've also got a Game of Thrones musical coming up at Comic-Con. So if you're going to Comic-Con, go to gotthemusical.com. There's tickets there. I'm playing Daenerys, and it's a really fun parody on the first season of Game of Thrones. So we're going to have a escape house. We're going to have a cool lounge, and the show, of course, for 3 days at Comic-Con. So yeah, check it out. And then if you get your tickets, be sure to put my name, KACEY, in the promo code, and I think you get a little bit of a discount, and then I get, like, mad props. So
awesome. I will I'll have to remind me about that.
Yeah.
This goes out tomorrow, so I'll remember that. I'll make sure it gets all the plugs in, and we'll I'll try to promote it as much as I can to all the nerds out there.
Yeah. Thanks.
Because that's awesome. I wish I was on the West Coast so I could go to Comic-Con.
I know. It's my first time.
Oh yeah! Oh god! I can't wait. One day I'll get there. That's the goal. Yeah. The one day is to get to, and at least as a customer or a patron. Yes. If I could get there as something cooler than that, awesome. But yeah, I'll pay. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be there for Screen Rant as well. I think we're going to do some live Facebook stuff.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, so if you want to see things from my perspective there.
Yeah, I was telling my best friend, I was like, yeah, I'm chatting with Garrett and my friend who works for Screen Rant to talk about Wonder Woman. And he's like, you know someone from Screen Rant? You're kind of a big deal. I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm a big deal. Like, I just know somebody.
That's hilarious. I'm not a big deal.
So I was like, so you made my cred better than it actually is by just being an employee of Screen Rant.
Oh, great.
So
I'm so glad I'm still employed.
Yes, don't let if Screen Rant pulls you into the office to fire you, say, wait. You listen to this.
Oh, wait, no, I have some insane followers, and I don't think you understand the engagement that I drive on my Twitter. So
they are borderline obsessive, and this guy, like, he was able to make friends because he knows me.
Yeah, I'm an important asset here.
All right, Kacey, thank you for being on the show again, and have fun with
everything you do, especially that Game of Thrones thing. I wish
Thank you.
I could be there for that one.
Thank you. I'll send you a postcard.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
All right. And that's a wrap. Thank you, Kacey, for being on the show once again. I love that I was able to just randomly message you and say, hey, can you be on the show to talk for a couple of minutes about Wonder Woman? And we end up talking for, I think, close to an hour. Some stuff was cut out. We had some recording issues that I was hopefully able to edit around. But Kacey, thank you so much for being part of the show. Make sure you check her out. She's doing a bunch of cool stuff out there. She's directing some sketches. She is hosting Screen Rant stuff and producing there. She is going to be at San Diego Comic-Con performing Game of Thrones the musical live there. So she's doing big and bad things. Go check it out if you can, if you're on the West Coast, or you know what, a lot of the stuff's just on the internet, so check it out there, to be honest. So glad that she did the show. So glad that Garrett did the show. They're both super friends. They're both, I'm sure, will be friends, lifelong friends of this show, and will be on future episodes. Thank you for listening. One more time to remind you, Everything is Awesome will be live at the Philadelphia Podcast Festival this year, July 16th, 2 p.m. at Tattooed Moms on South Street. I hope to see you there. Until next time, make sure you check out Everything is Awesome on Twitter at RealAwesomePod. You can find me on Twitter at ThatNerdyKev. That's where I do most of my tweeting and twatting. And make sure you just check us out on the interwebs. You can find us at awesomepodcast.com and coretemparts.com as part of the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. For Everything is Awesome, I'm Kev, and we've been awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Core Temp Arts shows, visit coretemparts.com.